Mexico is a large nation. No, that's an understatement. Being the 13th largest and 10th most populous country in the world, Mexico is an underappreciated titan among nations. Come to think of it, the Americas in general are full of large, diverse countries, from the US and Canada to Brazil and Argentina. I mean, even Colombia is no country to sneeze at. But then between Mexico and Colombia, you have a bunch of tiny little countries, which together make up the region of Central America. But why is Central America a bunch of little countries instead of one large country like most of the other countries in the Americas? Well, it kind of used to be. This topic was suggested on the KhAnubis Discord server. If you want to suggest video topics or just fool around with like-minded individuals about geography, world-building, politics, languages, or whatever your heart desires, be sure to click the invite link in the description. Central America today is made up of the countries of Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. Together, these 7 countries cover an area roughly the size of Thailand and hold a population of about 50 million. Turn the clock back to the mid-19th century, however, and there was a mostly unified Central America in the form of the Federal Republic of Central America. Originally known as the United Provinces of Central America, the territories of the FRCA would be formed from the Captaincy General of Guatemala, a Spanish colony that was sort of under the Viceroyalty of New Spain. Okay, colonial government explanation time. You see, when the Spanish began to colonize the Americas, toppling empires and spreading diseases in their wake, they would organize their territories into different viceroyalties. In North America, there was the Viceroyalty of New Spain, while in South America, there was the Viceroyalty of Peru, which was later split and joined by the Viceroyalties of New Granada and the Rio de la Plata. These viceroyalties were governed by viceroys, who ruled for fixed terms essentially in the place of the Spanish monarch, as ruling a vast expanse of land from 9,000 kilometers away in the 16th century was a bit easier said than done. After all, it is a 12-hour flight. The Viceroyalty of New Spain, aka the one we care about for this video, would encompass what we today call Mexico and the southwestern United States, with dependencies across Central America, the Caribbean, and briefly Venezuela, and even the Philippines. These dependencies held the title of Captaincy or Captaincy General, meaning they were led by appointed governors, and were generally assigned to regions at a higher risk of attack, be it from the native peoples of the area or Spain's European rivals. And starting in 1785, the Captaincy General of Guatemala would be further divided into the intendancies of Ciudad Real, Comayagua, León, and San Salvador, which, wow, that's like 3rd level subdivisions. But all that changed when the French nation attacked. When Napoleon's forces reached and invaded Spain, the Spanish Empire was reduced to the imperial equivalent of a chicken running around without its head. This was a series of events known by historians as the Peninsular War, since it also heavily involved Portugal. And there's a whole story about Brazil's independence in there as well, it's wild. While Spain would get fixed up not long after, Mexico would declare its independence in 1810, more specifically on the 16th of September. Cinco de Mayo is about a completely different victory against the French. Then, after an 11-year war, the First Mexican Empire was established in 1821, although they presumably didn't call it the First Mexican Empire at the time. Central America would also rebel against the empire in 1811 with an uprising in San Salvador, which was quickly put down by Spanish forces. 10 years later, however, when a Congress assembled in Guatemala City and signed a declaration essentially saying, hey, we kinda don't want to be Spanish anymore, a significantly weakened Spain, already desperately trying to hold on to Mexico and Peru, agreed to the demands. Thus, the United Provinces of Central America entered the world stage as a brand new independent country. Now, of course, it didn't exactly comprise what we think of as Central America today. Belize was excluded for the obvious reason that they were too busy being British, while Panama was excluded because they were busy being part of Gran Colombia, and later just plain Colombia. And that lasted all of about 3.5 months before the consultative junta that governed the new country voted to integrate itself into the newly independent Mexico. With rivalries quickly brewing and local governments refusing to recognize Guatemala City's power, law and order quickly broke down and many cities turned to open revolt, and thus the conservative-led government agreed to become part of the Mexican Empire. But Central American liberals did not like that either, which led to even more revolts. The very next year, the Mexican Empire became the first Mexican Republic, although again they probably didn't call it the first one at the time. Okay, you get it by now. And Central America once again declared its independence. However, even after second independence and a new constitution in 1824, the Federal Republic of Central America wasn't quite able to pull itself fully together. In particular, the issue of the Catholic Church's place in government drove a wedge between the liberals and the conservatives. In general, the liberals wanted separation of church and state, as well as a weaker executive government, while the conservatives wanted the Catholic Church to remain part of government, as well as a stronger executive government and more limited voting rights. Manuel José Arce of the Liberals would be elected president in 1825. However, by the end of his term in 1829, Arce would switch sides and dissolve the assembly. Francisco Morazan would take power shortly afterward and achieve many of the Liberals' goals, including pushing the church out of government and moving the capital down to San Salvador, although this would be reversed a few years later. The intensifying conflicts between the two groups, exacerbated by cholera outbreaks and rampant poverty throughout the country, led to civil wars throughout the 1830s, with the clergy even stating that the 1837 cholera outbreak was divine punishment for the liberals. Nicaragua withdrew from the Federation altogether in 1838, quickly followed by Costa Rica, Honduras, and Los Altos, now part of the Mexican state of Chiapas. By 1840, the FRCA was basically just left with El Salvador, which would officially declare independence the following year. To this day, the flags of the 5 countries once within the Federal Republic are still influenced by the design of the old flag, be it with the blue and white color scheme or with the coat of arms, with which Nicaragua went all in on. But the question still remains, why did they never get the band back together? Well, El Salvador, Honduras, and Nicaragua did try in the 1890s, but to be frank, being right next to a major superpower, especially in an imperialistic age, isn't always the best place and time for small, relatively poor countries with incredibly useful natural resources to be able to band together and unify without some sort of interference from said superpower. From its former ownership of the Panama Canal Zone to the banana republics held in place by American fruit companies, it's not like being in America's backyard really helped all that much. No, this does not make it okay when other countries do this to their neighbors. But that's not really the full story. With the creation of the Central American Integration System in 1991, CAIS, or actually let's call it SICA, for Sistema de la Integración Centroamericana, is an organization meant to promote political and economic, integration between its member states, the former members of the FRCA, plus Panama, Belize, and the Dominican Republic. The first 4 have also signed the Central America 4 Border Control Agreement, a sort of light Schengen visa agreement between the countries to allow their citizens to move across their borders more easily, basically meaning that a visa for one of the countries is a visa for all 4. It's nowhere near like Europe's Schengen area, where 27 countries basically act as one for all intents and purposes that a tourist needs to know. But I mean, making a video on it could be a good reason for me to travel to Central America in the future.